Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another live. Let me turn up the brightness a smidge. My name is Laken, and I go live every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern to answer any questions you have about goals, planning, and life. Excited to hang out with you today. Let's kick it off with our first question that I always ask, which is, what are you drinking? If you are here live, I would love for you to share in the chat what you're drinking while we're hanging out. And if you are catching the replay, I would love for you to leave it down in the comments. I actually went and grabbed a iced coffee from Dunkin' around the corner because I packed all the mugs and all the cups basically. So I went ahead and grabbed myself a coffee from Dunkin'. Let's see, iced coffee, water. I also have my water handy as well. Water, coffee, lots of water, waiting for your coffee to brew. Melissa, I love that. Exciting. Peppermint tea. Ooh, Christina, that sounds good. Glad that you are able to join today's live. Appreciate all of you so much. Everyone who is here live, but also everyone who catches the replay. I'm just so thankful. I love these chats. I feel like I get to just kind of hang out and be myself. Let's see. Water, Chick-fil-A sweet tea, breakfast smoothie on the West Coast. I feel that, Aubrey. Water and Diet Dr. Pepper. Amanda, hanging out on your other channel today in our chat. Iced coffee, twinning. It's just iced coffee with half and half from Dunkin' Donuts. It's very delicious. It's literally, but it's good. I like it. Protein coffee. Look at those shelves. I know. Guys, there's nothing behind me. It's totally empty. If you are new here, I'm moving in 6 days, and my mom was here last week to help me pack. I did a whole video about that, so coming soon. But yeah, boxes, suitcase, and then literally nothing else. It's so empty. It feels so weird. Kind of warned you about that it was going to be empty this week, but it feels really weird. Normally, if this is your first live, welcome. Normally I have lots of stuff on the shelves behind me. And the next live is going to have a very different background, which before we jump into our next question, I don't know what happened to the little banner that I made. It's not there, but let me quickly tell you that there will be no live next week, March 1st, because I literally am moving. That's the day we are moving into our new apartment. We're leaving New York on Tuesday, the 28th, and then we're moving into our new apartment on Wednesday, the 1st. So there will be no live. There will be a video in its place. So you will have something to watch on Wednesday. It just won't be a live. But then the next week, we'll be back live, and it will be a totally new background. Who knows what that setup is going to be, because I may have to go to my mom's. We'll have internet in our apartment by then for sure, but I don't know if I'll have a desk. Who knows? Who knows where that live will be coming from? But there will be a live March 8th. I just don't know what that is going to look like. I know, Maggie, 6 days. I cannot believe it. All right, let's quickly do our other question, which is, what is one small win that you want to share? What is one small win that you have achieved in the last week since we've chatted, or any time if you weren't here last week? Sorry, I also have hiccups right now. But what is one small win that you want to share? For me, it's the progress that we've made on packing. And by we, I mean, thank God for my mother. My mom is the best, y'all. I think I talked about it a little bit on last week's live. She originally wasn't supposed to come with my stepdad for his business trip, but then ended up coming with him and helping us pack. And it was so nice. I'm so thankful. So, but I would love to hear about your wins in the chat if you're here live. And if you are here watching the replay, I would love to hear about your win in the comments. Holly, thank you for being my example. If your YouTube name is different than the name that you prefer to go by, I would love for you to include your name in your comment. I finished the first 2 classes in my master's program, got my taxes done. Monique, that's amazing. Started collecting tax interview. I have an interview tomorrow for a job I'm very excited about. Holly, that's a really, really awesome. 2 Hollies. Ending February in New York and starting March in Chicago. Yeah. We literally are leaving on the last day, we weren't sure if that was how it was going to work out, but because of the lease, the days the lease ended, and then also having time to finish packing. And then also we can stay with my mom there, but Charlie cannot stay with my mom there. And so we're actually staying somewhere else on Tuesday night so that we can have her with us. And I didn't want to put them out for a bunch of weekdays. So River J finished a section for yoga teacher training. I've been filling out my book reviews as soon as I finish the book. Ariel, that's amazing. Water got off track while my daughter was here, getting on back on track now. Debbie, I totally feel that. Jamie, got through my entire to-do list last week. Going on vacation and a good motivator. Yeah, always going on vacation is always a good up to get everything done. Worked out again after 2 weeks being sick. First off, I'm glad that you're feeling better, Jennifer. Like I know you were not feeling well for a very long time. So I'm glad that you're feeling better and that you got back to it. I hope that you're super proud of that. Finished your first book in February. It's been a struggle bus month. I feel that. Shani, bridesmaids and my dress picked out. Congrats. That's huge. Those are huge steps. And that is so exciting. Completed onboarding tasks for a new job. Monalay, I always appreciate you. And I know you've told me how to pronounce your name before, but I appreciate you sharing that again. Monalay. That is just such a beautiful name. Got back into my habits after being sick with COVID. Got a job promotion. Congrats. Almost done with your 10th book of the year. That is amazing. Wendy, painting another wall in your garage. You are making so much progress on your house. So impressive. Awesome. Thank you all so much for sharing your wins. I appreciate hearing about them. And hopefully it gives you a little bit, even a small sense of accomplishment, being able to share them with all of us. Couple more. Did not buy lunch out all week. Ooh, that's a huge one. Wow. I'm impressed. Meeting people through volunteer work has led me to the Texas Master Naturalist Certification Program. That's a mouthful, Jennifer or Jessica, but that is really, really exciting. It sounds like something that you're super excited about to get started on. So congrats on figuring that out. That's so exciting. All right, let's get to it. What questions do you have? They can be about your individual goals that you can ask. I guarantee you somebody else probably has a similar goal and would benefit from your question. If you're not sure how to phrase it to a question, you can always put topic and just put the topic in the chat. It can be a question about something I've shared that you want me to dig in a little bit further. I can talk about moving if you want me to talk about moving, but I feel like I've talked about that almost on every live. So you're probably sick of hearing about it at this point. But any questions that you have that you would like to chat about, I am here to chat and hang out. Excited to chat, even with all the empty shelves behind us. It does look weird. I also originally was going to try to not have boxes behind me, but y'all, you know what? It's one live, and that's where my life is at right now. Even in the videos I'm filming this week, there's boxes, you can see them, and I just don't care. It's not worth trying to mess with. It's where we're at. And actually, as soon as this live's over, I'm probably going to get rid of that lamp. It's going to go down to the street corner. If you've never lived in a city where people just put furniture on the street, here, come get it. A lot of our furniture, that's what's going to end up happening. It's just going to be down on the street for people to take. So. Anna, change my turn signal light by myself. Congrats. Maggie, my job is getting rid of Asana, the paid version. Any suggestions for free online task keepers? Trying to find suggestions for coworkers. That's interesting that they're getting rid of a paid version. I'm sure they have a reason for that. But that's kind of a bummer. I personally have never been successful at using one of these online task organizers. I just either needs to be, for me, it either needs to be a Google spreadsheet or a Google Doc, or it needs to be handwritten. I've never been good at using one of these systems. So somebody else might have a better suggestion for one that is free besides me. Trello is a lot like Asana, but what about the free version of Asana? Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I don't know. That's tough. That's such a bummer. Monique, great question. So if you haven't heard us talk about for the past couple of weeks, we are moving the Goals with Laken community to Teachable. So I joined Teachable on February 16th. Next month, it will be on March 16th. Yeah, so you'll always be on the 16th of the month. And Jessica, seeing the emptiness behind you, it makes the move feel so real. Never tire of hearing about it. Such an exciting time in your life. I appreciate it. It is I talked about it a little bit in the goals video that will go up next week. It's the first time in my life that I have moved cities based on like my choice and not like not like a life milestone, like on purpose, like college, or somebody else making the decision for me. So it's exciting. It's kind of scary, but exciting. But I'm thankful that I have Sam to do it with me. So, oh, can't. Here's another suggestion. If you have Microsoft, we use Azure DevOps. That's a good suggestion. I mean, when I worked in my corporate job, I never had to use one of those systems because the project management team used those. Like they were the ones that managed the projects. And so they used those kinds of tools. And they just sent me a list of what I had to do that week as the product manager. So I've never had to use one of those in a professional setting. I tried them all like for my own business and was never successful with any of them. Jennifer, who else is impacted by this winter storm? Today and tomorrow, we're expecting 10 inches of snow and below 0 wind chills. Isn't it almost March? I can't even believe. Like, I can't. We're supposed to get a little bit of it, but they're thinking it might even be rain here and not even snow. So I don't think it's going to end up getting us too much. Yeah, I mean, it is almost March, but as somebody who, I mean, I lived in the suburbs of Chicago for years, and as somebody with a March 25th birthday, it has snowed on my birthday before. So March, I never rule out in terms of snow, unfortunately. Oh, Christina, you're getting hit too. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, River J, we're at 16 inches and expecting a couple more. Woof. That's a lot. That's a lot of snow. Sending all of the good vibes to all of you in the wake of the storm. Hopefully all your power stays on and everybody stays safe and you're able to just kind of hunker down and write it out. I know that's not always an option, but hopefully you can stay as safe as possible. Maggie, hopefully some of those suggestions helped you. And if anybody watching the replay has any suggestions for Maggie for a digital project management service, let her know in the comments. And Maggie, if you want to come back and check the comments in a few days, sometimes there will be additional suggestions. Amanda, we aren't wearing jackets here today. She's in San Antonio, for those of you, or not in San Antonio anymore. I forgot. I know you moved, but like in my brain, that's still where you live. I'll be going through it next year. Yeah, when you're in the Dakotas. It's so freaking cold there. Goal breakdown questions. Is it possible to break them down too much? Check marks give me motivation, but sometimes I feel like I'm not accomplishing a big enough task. That's a great question. And there's no right answer, right? The answer is going to depend on you. I personally, for me, don't feel like there's such thing as too much, because even if I do 2 or 3 steps at one time, I would rather get 2 or 3 check marks. But if I have a low energy day and I only get 1 done, then I want to be able to get that 1 check mark. The comment about not feeling like you're accomplishing a big enough task is more about just remembering that every goal that you're achieving is a combination of little tiny tasks. And whether you're breaking them down in those little small steps or bigger steps, you're still going to have to do all those small steps. And some progress is better than no progress. And so it really does depend on your life and your motivation levels and what works for you. And it differs by goals as well. There are some goals that I found I don't need to break down as much because I work in bigger chunks. But then there are goals that I need to break down more because I won't work on it in as big of a chunk, if that makes sense. So if you find that you have a goal that you're checking off multiple check marks, then maybe you don't want to break it down as much. But if you're only checking off 1 check mark, you're breaking it down to the right amount. And the feeling of not accomplishing a big enough task is really more of a mental breakthrough to focus on the progress that you are making. Thinking about, I was just having a conversation with, we went to visit my husband's mentor that he works with. He's like 10 years ahead of us, and like he very much aspires his like business success. And he was talking to us about the gap versus the gain. And I know there's a book about this, and I haven't read the book, but it's focusing on how far you have to go instead of how far you have come. And like we were talking about it as it relates to my husband's business and his struggle with focusing on where he wants to be instead of like how far he has come in the short amount of time. And so focusing on how far you have come and what you have accomplished. And when you feel like it's not big enough, you're focusing on what you haven't done. You're focusing on the gap as opposed to the gain. I know I'm probably not explaining it well enough as the book. Like I said, I haven't read the book yet. But I think, to me, there is no such thing as breaking it down too much. And if that's the feeling, it's working through that feeling, and not breaking it down less is not the solution, in my opinion. For Jay, what are some ways that you gain inspiration? Always with the deep questions. It depends on what I need inspiration for. I know that's kind of a vague answer to start with, but it really, like, if I need inspiration for like certain areas of my life, I want to consume or surround myself with people that have that, right? Like, if we need inspiration for like our relationship, can we go on a double date with a couple whose marriage I really admire? Right. Or if I need inspiration for home stuff, can I go wander around I almost said IKEA, but like something maybe a little bit more grown up than IKEA, but to get inspiration for that, right? So it kind of depends on what I want to get inspiration for. I also have very much learned that stepping away from whatever it is that I'm trying to get inspiration for is going to give me more inspiration, right? Like, if I need inspiration for work, sitting in this office isn't going to give it to me. I need to like go out and do something else and step away and let my brain turn off. And that is hard. Like, it's really hard for me to be okay with that, to be like, the best way for me to be successful is to step away. But I know that that's what works best for me. Like, I get my best ideas on vacation because I'm stepping away. Memphis. My anniversary is March 9th, and it always snows here the week before after. Yeah. With a March 12th anniversary, I feel like this year we're just doing a staycation in Chicago. But I think in future years, I'm going to want to get out of Chicago, go somewhere warmer. Someone brought up at the last Q&A about keeping up with brushing. We talked about this on the Patreon, the community. I'm trying not to use that word anymore since we're relocating officially also in just a few days. Since we are relocating to Teachable, that was on that Q&A. So if you're digging to find it in one of these lives, you're not going to find it. It's in the community Q&A. But we were talking about everybody has different struggles. Everybody has different things that they're good at. And this conversation stemmed from should goals and from having goals that you should do and motivating yourself to do those, even if you struggle with them. Some goals are more about prevention versus obtaining a tangible goal. How do you keep up that momentum motivation? So, right, one of the things we talked about in terms of motivation or finding a why really for something like brushing your teeth, besides just the fact that you're an adult and you have to do that, but sometimes that's not enough depending on who you are, is that what are the things that it prevents doing? Like, what are the diseases and the issues and the problems that you're going to prevent by consistently brushing your teeth? And just so you know that you're not alone. There were lots of conversations and other things and there were people that were like, I don't struggle with that, but I struggle with this, right? And everybody has their own little things that they struggle with. And it feels like all of the adults in the world have it together, and surprise, we don't. So that is two things. Motivation and momentum are friends, but they are not necessarily going to be one and the same, right? So we talked about that in relation to this on that Q&A. Is on one hand, you've got to find the why. There's got to be a why for a should goal, because otherwise you're never going to you've got to have a little bit more of an umph behind you other than like, I should do this, I should do that. And that's going to be what you're probably considering motivation. And for brushing, a lot of the suggestions was all about prevention and the things that you're avoiding. In terms of momentum, that's a practical thing, right? How are you practically doing that? And we talked about doing it earlier in the evening. We talked about making it more exciting by having like a cute toothbrush or cute setup and something that you're excited about. Somebody talked about listening to music while they did it. So I think it's having figuring out what you need for you individually to kickstart and keep the momentum. And then when you lose it, that's when you need to go back into kind of the why, right? When you need to like kind of restart it, it's like, okay, let me go back and rewind and remind myself why this is something that I am prioritizing, and remind yourself of those preventions, right? Yeah. Monalay saying, I got tired of spending money on root canals. It's a great example. And if it means like at the beginning, having a picture of something by your toothbrush or the inside of your cabinet to remind you, that might be what you need. And we're all going to be different. And it's about figuring out what you need and working with that and not trying to just do what other people do. That's a good motivator. I habit stacked it. I brush my teeth in the shower. I've heard a lot of people do that. And that's a good option. Amanda, I have a hard time stopping and resting during the day. Not because I don't have time, but because it makes me feel so lazy. I've been told my whole life that I'm lazy, so I'm always in my head. Any tips? Okay. So the first part of this is whoever is telling you that you're lazy, is this somebody that you really value their opinion and suggestion? And if you don't, then it doesn't matter. Then I don't really care what they're saying. And if you do, I would ask, like, what do you think they were thinking of as their definition of lazy, right? And there's a lot of stigma around, like, the word lazy gets like a bad rap, right? It seems like it's a negative. And so thinking of rest as not lazy, thinking of rest as recharging, as refuel, right? When you think of like, I'm trying to think of an example of like something that has to rest. I was going to use like a baking example, but that's not my strong suit. Or even like an electronic, right? You've got to turn it off every once in a while. It's got to charge every once in a while. And we're not like, hey, electronic, you're being lazy because you need a recharge, or you're being lazy because I need to restart you because I haven't restarted you in 3 weeks. Thinking of resting as like what you need. And I think also remembering that there are so many different types of rest. And while, yes, sitting on the couch watching Netflix is a form of rest, and it might be a form of rest that you need, it's not the only form of rest. And I learned this from the book Burnout, which I have recommended before. I do think that it's not the best structured book. It can be a little bit all over the place, but they talk in that book about the different types of rest, and then also how much rest we as humans need on a regular basis and why we need it. And that really helped me. First off, it helped me alleviate a lot of guilt on the amount of rest that I need. Second off, it allowed me to realize that like going out with my friends is a type of rest, right? It's because I'm an extrovert. And so it is emotional rest for me not to be thinking about work, to be with my friends. And so noticing what are the other types of rest that you're incorporating into your day, or if you're not, that you could be, that isn't rest, maybe that makes you feel lazy, if that makes sense. Also, I also used to struggle with this, and the pandemic basically forced me into it because I wasn't taking any time off. I wasn't resting at all. Not like taking time off like vacations. I mean, like taking breaks during the day, during the week, during the month. I was just go, go, go all the time. And the pandemic basically forced me to do it. And I realized how much more effective I was the other hours of the day when I did take my rest, when I did take breaks, and when I did recuperate. And then it made me feel better. The other thing I do, I feel like I've talked about this for an hour now, but like the other thing that I do is and when you say during the day, I don't necessarily force it at different times during the day. I do try to take small breaks, but what I try to do is, not right now because moving is taking over my life, but normally I like to have 1 or 2 hours of white space in my evenings. That's it. I say that's it. That's a lot, but it's also like, it's not a lot in the grand scheme of things. And then depending on what I need that day, what kind of rest do I need that day? Sometimes it's what people would call lazy rest, where I'm literally sitting on the couch watching a movie. Sometimes it's a bubble bath. Sometimes it's reading. Sometimes it's meeting somebody for dinner. Sometimes it's actually doing a little bit of work because I have some extra energy because it's that time of the month, like where you have high energy and I am going to power through some things. Right. So I think, and then what I have learned is I like to have 1 to 2 hours a day is my ideal. And everybody's ideal is going to be different. I just went through this with a one-on-one client actually. Like I like to have 1 to 2 hours a day. I like to try to have like a half a day on like a regular weekend, and then at least one day a month there's like it's a completely empty day where there's nothing scheduled. I haven't had that in a very long time, but that's the ideal. That's the dream that I'm working towards. That is what I know works for me. And if I can leave that kind of white space to then take the kind of rest I need in that moment, I'm more successful in every other area of my life. I mean, I just said a lot of words to you. Hopefully something in there was helpful. Yes, it's tough to sit there when there are things that can be done. That's when I pull out the mindset. There's always going to be things to be done. Oh, I have this conversation with Sam all the time. The to-do list is never going to be done, ever. It's ongoing for the rest of forever. So if we think that we're going to rest when it's done, we're never going to rest. So we have to rest in the middle of it. It's a good suggestion. I would also review or write out what you've accomplished that day, week, month. The other people don't see everything you do. Yeah, that's a great point about the people saying things about being lazy. Nobody but you, like not even probably your husband, knows all of the things that you do for the household. Like for the household, for your businesses, for your clients, like nobody knows all of those things except for you. And so focusing on what you did accomplish is a really great suggestion for not feeling lazy. I like that one, Jennifer. Thank you. And I know you're not alone in feeling this way. I mean, I felt this way before too. It really, it comes down to like also being okay with not caring about what other people think of you. I literally, where were we? That I was like, I said something to myself. I was like, oh no, I don't want to do that because this person's going to judge me for this. And I was like, okay, Laken, first off, you don't know that they're going to judge you for that. You don't know that they're actually going to judge you. Second off, who cares? You don't know that person. There's not somebody whose opinion you care about. If they judge you for that, if that is the decision you want to make, who cares what they're going to say? Joanna, I've been doing such a good job with my goals since the new year. Unfortunately, last week I reached total burnout and now I can't face opening my goal planner. Any tips for starting again slowly and finding a more sustainable balance? Yes. So part of me wonders if, because you started off with a lot, that is one of the results to hitting burnout, right? So I think I'm not saying like, don't feel bad about it. Like that's just, it's acknowledging it and being aware of it. So knowing what point you were at that resulted in the burnout so that you don't build yourself back up to that, because that's not it. So just recognizing that. So step one, I think you take your break. Like you take whatever time that you need. And if it is another day, if it's another week, if it's through the end of February, like whatever feels right to you, don't feel guilty about it. It's take the time that you need, because if you try to jump back in too quickly, you're just going to quickly hit burnout again. So that's step one. Number two is, you said it exactly, starting again slowly. So don't feel like just because you were working at this speed, right? And whether that was filling in all of the categories or having it all the way to the max. What does slowly look like? Does it look like prioritizing just one or two of the areas of life? Is it just doing one thing in each area, right? And not trying to immediately get back into where you were at before. Sorry, y'all, my hiccups are just, I can't. Oh, that coffee tastes so good though. It's just like, and I feel like we did talk about this on a community call once. about it can be so tempting to start the new year with like a lot, like taking all of the motivation that you have and starting at 100 miles an hour. And sometimes that does result in burnout because we're operating on motivation, not on like our actual fuel levels, right? Not on what you like can sustainably sustain for the long time, talking about your sustainable balance, right? Knowing that the speed at which you went in January and the first half of February was not a maintainable speed for you. So, and again, there's nothing you can do about it now. I want you to not feel guilty and not worry about what did or didn't happen. Like it's over. It doesn't matter. What matters now is picking the things going forward that are going to work for you. So it's going to take some prioritizing, and just being proud of yourself for the steps that you are able to take. I think it's gonna be a lot more mental. I think Joanna, especially you, as somebody that I've worked with before, you know the how. Like you know how to break the goals down, and you know how to pick the small steps. Like you know the how. It's the mindset of it's gonna look different than it did in January. It needs to look slower, and figuring out that sustainable speed for you and your life and not comparing yourself. Debbie, this is a good statement. If you're having a hard time stopping and resting, you're not lazy. Yeah. Yeah. And whoever called you lazy is mean. It's not it. I sat back in my chair, so I like tilted the computer down, and now you can like see my pile of clothes sitting there. It's not cute. I'm living everything's empty, by the way. Again, I do have a video coming about the packing process, but everything is empty. Closet, drawers, all of it empty. And so I have my small suitcase down there that has the clothes that I'm living out of until we move. That's the pile down there. It's messy. Let's scooch over and cover it up. So it just makes everything look a little bit cleaner. Viv, this is a good question. How do you know if you get enough rest? Sometimes my breaks turn into a marathon break. How can you be disciplined not only about taking a break, but also stopping it? So that is part of the reason why I don't take extended breaks during the day. Because I also am a momentum doer. And I also know that my energy levels pretty much operate like this. Now, everybody is going to be different, but I know that my highest energy is at the beginning of the day, and then it literally goes down, and I don't ever feel like it ever goes back up. So now maybe that would be different if I stopped to take a break. But again, this is what I know that works for me. So during the day, my small breaks are just 5 minutes, and I operate based on the Pomodoro cycle. So it's a 25-minute working period, 5-minute off. And I guess I do take longer breaks because I try to follow the cycle. And then when it tells me to take a longer break, I guess I do. And the way I stop is by following the cycle. So it's 25 minutes on, a 5-minute break. During those 5-minute breaks, it's 5 minutes goes by so fast. I basically like fill up my water, go to the bathroom if I have to, get a snack if I have to, and like check Instagram, and then I come back to it. And then after every 4, it is a 20 or 25-minute break. And on those, I'll ask myself, am I hungry? Like, do I need to eat a meal? Or I will, like, I said this in a vlog recently, I'll try and get up and go to a different room in the house. Unfortunately, right now, I don't love that because the room I would go to is the living room, and it's dark in there, and I don't like being in the dark. I can't wait for our new apartment where my living room has light. So that's what I'm going to try to do during my longer break. But because I'm following the cycle, as soon as the timer goes off, I get back to it. Now, I also have the luxury of working for myself. So I have the ability to follow that cycle. But it sounds like when you say that, like your breaks turn into marathon breaks. So I don't know if that's what you meant by like a break during the day, but that's also why I like to put my white space at the end of the day. Because I know it's my least energy, and I like to just have my rest at the end of the day because that's what works best for me. So I don't know if that's what you're getting at, or if there's another kind of break that you mean that you keep going. But that's kind of how I operate. Joanna, I like the idea of doing nothing through the end. The idea of doing nothing through the end of February feels good. Yeah. I mean, we're almost at the end of the month. Normally, I would tell you not to give up on the next 6 days. But first off, February is a short month. So we're really talking 6 days. And maybe you just need a little bit of a break. Oh, Alexandria, welcome to your first live. Thank you for joining us. Joanna, I think the weekly tempo of the Moxie Life feels a bit more relentless than the monthly tempo of the Power Sheets. That could also be very possible. You're using the Moxie Life for the first time. I think sometimes the benefit of the Moxie Life is that I've said this before, you actually can have it be smaller in the Moxie Life because you're not committing it for a whole month. But the flip side of that is that you feel like you have to add things or increase it every week, maybe, when you actually don't. So even if the weekly is beneficial for you for whatever reasons, keep that in mind. Just like I want you to think back to, and this is something we're going to incorporate a little bit more, by the way, in the weekly coaching calls. If you haven't heard me talk about this, one of the big reasons that we are moving from one of the big changes, not the reason why we're moving is totally different reason. The biggest changes to the community structure is weekly coaching calls as opposed to just like sporadic different types of calls. But one of those reasons is for those of you using the Moxie Life or any other weekly goal setting system who need kind of more of an ongoing check-in on a weekly basis. So I want you to think about how when we're doing our monthly goal setting sessions, right? I ask you to think about what your month looks like on a scale of 1 to 10. How busy are you? Keeping that in mind when you set your goals. Doing that weekly as well for the Moxie Life can be really, really beneficial. So you're not overcommitting. But sometimes that means that the current week that you're setting up has less stuff than the prior week. And that can feel like failure. It's not, but it can feel like, oh, well, I had 10 items on my weekly goal sheet last week. And this week I only have 6 because I'm also traveling for work or I have whatever else going on. It can feel bad. And so that can be hard to work through. So I don't know if that's something you're struggling with. And then also the need to like increase numerical goals on a weekly basis when you don't. So hopefully that helps a little bit. And hopefully the weekly calls will help a little bit more too. My own plot twist is that it's me. I call myself lazy even all the time, even knowing I busted and rocked the day. Such a negative mind of mine at times. We all struggle with that. You are definitely not alone. And I think the best thing I can remind you is you are not going to be the best version of you being mean to yourself, right? I want you to think about a best friend or a sister or a parent or a child that you're trying to encourage through life, right? That you're trying to support and be there for. And like, how would you talk to them? And I know this might be a little bit like wooey for some people, but like, how would you talk to them? How would you encourage them through life? And what's going to be helpful things for you to say and what are unhelpful things for you to say? And we all need to do this. And it's not a light switch. It's not something that I can tell you tomorrow. Or I can tell you right now. And you'll be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And now you're never going to talk mean to yourself again. Never going to happen. It's something we've got to constantly work at. But I know that when we are nice to ourselves, we are more successful. It's just a fact. And we're happier and we're better people and all of these great things. So when you find yourself saying mean things to yourself, how can you flip it around? How can you flip it into a nice thing? And again, I know that's way easier said than done, but hopefully that helps a little. Excuse me. Kimberly, can you elaborate on putting white space at the end of the day? Is that work tasks or personal rest? That's personal rest. That's my white space. No, I don't have any. My white space for work tasks is, if you've watched any of my like kind of overarching plan with me videos in the past, were Fridays. That was like that's my like white space for work where I don't have any scheduled tasks to do on Fridays. And it's my like catch up time. I like to have personal rest time at the end of every day. And what I mean by that is I'm not filling it with goals. I'm not filling it with other, whether it's work commitments or whatever it is. I need that just empty space at the end of the day. Sometimes it does get filled by like a social thing, but I also know that I'm an extrovert. So I'm okay with that getting filled that way. but it's literally like having at least an hour is the bare minimum. I aim for 2 at the end of the day. Amanda, interesting. I agree about the tempo. I have decided not to use the weekly check-ins for February, and it's working. So Amanda, did you fill out every weekly page in the Moxie Life at the beginning of February? I would love to know about that. Jennifer, yes. I also leave an open weekend white space where I have no goals scheduled so I can use it for catch up and rest if I've accomplished everything. Yeah, and this started, Kim, to add a little bit more. I started doing this because I used to not. I used to literally fill up every hour of every day with something. It was my 9 to 5 corporate job and then all the stuff around that, commuting, getting ready. It was Plan with Laken related things, Instagram, YouTube. It was goals, personal goals around that, and then social things. And that was my time. That was literally filled up every hour of every day. And I was completely headed towards burnout. And then the universe was like, stop. Here's some white space because you can't go anywhere or do anything. So this year I have embraced having more white space in my weekly actions or skipping them all together in your Moxie Life. I'm glad you figured out what works for you. Also using your stand-up reminder on your new smartwatch as a prompt to get up and take a work break. That's a great idea. If you're somebody, especially if you're someone who works at like a corporate job and you're sitting at your desk, that 50-minute reminder that's like, it's time to stand up is a great reminder to get up and go take a break. Like go, just even if you just do a lap around the floor. I used to do that a lot. Alexis, do you have any tips for breaking that all or nothing mindset? I watch you enough to have heard them before, but need a reminder. Sometimes I just can't seem to take the first step to do things. Yeah, you are not alone. And I do have a whole video on all or nothing mindset that you could go back and rewatch if you need it. But let's talk here a little bit, which is the number one thing is that you can't do it all. Like all is impossible, essentially. So if you want to do anything, you're going to have to let it go and do something smaller. And the reminder that something is better than nothing. So what is that small something that can fit in? And like, how can you schedule that in? And the all or nothing mindset applies to so many things, right? It applies to schedule, like time, right? It's doing a 15-minute workout instead of an hour because you don't have an hour. It applies to nutrition, right? Focusing on eating 80-20 to whatever your nutrition goals are as opposed to 100-0. It can apply to just so many different facets, but it's reminding yourself everything is on a spectrum and we can't operate at either extreme. Like neither extreme is healthy. Doing it all or likely doing nothing, depending on what it is not going to be beneficial for you. So what is that little small step that you can take? And then once you kind of start, that momentum will really help you keep going. But if you have a specific thing that you're struggling with, Alexis, that you would love to share or feel comfortable sharing rather, I would love to give you some like specific tips on that. But maybe go back and rewatch that video. I know I've said this a million times. But when I release videos, you might see the topic of that video that week. I'm talking the like goal tip videos, right? The specific videos that are about a topic. And you might see it that week and be like, that's not really something I need this week. Or you might watch it because you watch every video. If that's you also, thank you. But like I have YouTube channels like that as well, where like the video will come out and I'm like, well, I watch every video of this channel, so I'm going to watch it anyway, even if right now that topic they're talking about doesn't really apply to my life. Or I'll watch it with whatever is currently going on in my head in the background. So maybe when that all or nothing video came out, which I think was like a year or two ago, you had a different goal in your brain. And so when you watched it, you were thinking about that goal. Now, however many years later, you have different goals. So rewatching the video, even if you're hearing the same information again, your brain is going to process it differently because you have different things going on in your life. And so it is helpful to rewatch. I'm not telling you this just to like have you rewatch videos. That is not the purpose. The purpose is that I really do think, because it happens for me with other things that I consume, that watching it, I mean, even movies. I was literally watching a movie yesterday and because of where I'm at in my life, I consume that movie very differently than I have in the past in my life. It was very interesting. So just something to keep in mind. Like if you're like, I don't want to rewatch a video, I've already watched that, I just need to remember it. Like if you have different goals than the first time you watched that video, go watch that video. Viv, great question. I can't remember if you recommend recording how long activities take. If so, how long do we record ourselves? If not, why not? So in general, I think time tracking can be beneficial in short spurts to gather data. And I'm gonna say it a little bit differently for personal and business in 1 second. But if we're talking personal, I do think that time tracking for 1 week can be very helpful. I do it with every single one-on-one client. They pick a week and they track their time for that single week, and we talk about the results. It is not meant to be anything more than a data gathering exercise and figuring out where their time is going. I do think that is helpful. Again, in a short spurt to figure out information. I also think if you have a task that you do regularly, and this could be personal or business, tracking it, depending on how much you fluctuate, maybe 3 times, maybe 4, 3 to 5 times, just to see how long it takes you on average. That way, when you're scheduling it in the future, you know approximately how long it takes. Now, for business related things, I do track everything. But that is for a couple of reasons. Part of it is for information for me to be able to use down the road. Part of it is for my own, I like it to see how much I've accomplished. I like seeing how much time I spent on things to like be like, this is how much work you put in this week or this month. And I like seeing that at the end of the week or the end of the month. And it doesn't, for work, it doesn't add additional stress. I don't feel like I have to rush things. I don't feel like I'm just very, like I have become somehow a very flowy person when it comes to tracking. And probably because I do it every single week. The other thing is I don't get super exact about it. And I also don't encourage clients to get exact about it either when we go through that week. We're not mathematicians. We're not data scientists. We're not trying to get exact numbers. We're just trying to get a general sense. It's more important about how the numbers compare to each other than what they are exactly. So I'm like, no decimal points, maybe a 0.5, maybe when we break it down by day. Otherwise, like no decimal points. We don't need decimals. And so I'm the same way when I track my work stuff is I round up, I round down. It's very loose. Ultimately, because the purpose is for my own progress, for me to feel accomplished, as opposed to like using that information. Amanda, I left them blank and then created my own version of the HB90 weekly thing. And I cover the blank page with that each week. And that's all I look at. No smaller breakdowns. Oh, well, that's awesome. I'm glad you figured out something that works for you. I need to get a Moxie Life planner. Would it be too late to get one in Q2? Not at all. I mean, it depends. So they have multiple versions and when I say multiple, I mean, there are a ton of options in terms of there's quarterly dailies. There are 6-month undated options. There's the full year dated. I'm missing something, I think. So you might feel if like the full year dated coiled version, if you feel like that's a waste, even though it's not, like not at all. It's not too late. But if you wanted to feel less like you're wasting, get one of the quarterly ones, and it is not too late at all. Time tracking your weekend days is one of the things I think led to burnout. Interesting, Joanna, because I remember talking about that one-on-one, and I think tracking your weekend days temporarily, we talked about this, that like, I think temporarily it's helpful for you to gather that information and see what you're doing. But then I also think you can, it's not something you have to do every single weekend. And it's a tool in your toolbox. Like time tracking, I think of as a tool when you need to pull it back out. And you pull it back out, whether you need it for just weekdays, just weekend days, or the whole week, but you pull it back out temporarily to gather some data, to make some decisions, and then you put it back in. It's not necessarily something you do all the time. Super helpful to separate time tracking for personal goals and working goals. That seems much more doable. Yeah. I don't think time tracking your personal goals, like I think of time tracking for like your life, like in terms of where you're spending your time. Your personal goals, unless it's something you're going to be doing regularly and you want to know how long it takes you so that you can schedule it. I remember we talked about this on a community Q&A once, where it was like somebody was talking about doing the dishes, and we talked about, or like putting the dishes in the dishwasher or something. And we talked about like setting a timer. And I was like, just do it 3 times. Time yourself 3 times and see on average how long it takes you to do. And then now you know how long it's going to take you. I remember our conversation. It's so seductive because it makes me feel so productive in the moment. I feel that. Maybe, Joanna, it's half the day or 1 day of the weekend or 2 weekends out of the month, or something like that, right? Like planning it in advance for what weekends you're going to, and then making sure that you are giving yourself weekend days where you do not track anything. Yeah, because we definitely need that. I feel that. It does make you feel productive, which is one of the reasons why I think I do it for work purposes every single week. But I can't imagine doing that for personal things every single week. There's no way. I need space to live my life. All right, y'all. This is one of the fastest lives. I literally don't know where the time went. I mean, I have had 4 sips of coffee. Y'all have had such great questions. Where did 51 minutes go? I have no idea. Any other questions? Anything else? I feel like this has been, again, you guys really great questions today. Hopefully, you took something away that was helpful. We still have 10 minutes. I'm not going anywhere right this second. I looked at the time and was like, has it really been 51 minutes already? Also, my lips are super chapped and I keep like biting at them. And I know that's not good for them. I know, but it's hard to not when they're so chapped. Which I know Chicago is even drier. Like New York's not really a dry city, truthfully, but Jennifer, any tips for making plans with friends that aren't planners? They just go with what I plan. I mean, yes, that's basically what I do as well. And I've had friends where I've asked them, I'm like, do you want to plan things? And I've had friends come back and be like, no, I'm okay with you just planning things. And then I've had friends that are like, yeah, I'd like to plan. And I try to set that expectation might be way too strong of a word, but I try to set that vibe at the beginning. Like the first time I'm making plans one-on-one, like, are they a planner? Am I a planner? I think, and I don't know if this is what you struggle with too. I think a lot of my friends tend to just like let me plan it because they know that I like to, and that's fine. But then I also have friends that are good planners too. And like, they'll make reservations. Like I have brunch plans on Sunday with a friend. And right now I'm getting really good at just letting go of anything that I don't have to do. And she was like, it was so cute. She was like, do you want to pick a place or do you want me to just pick a place and I tell you where to show up? And I was like, that one. I don't want to have to deal with it. Like, I just want to show up where you tell me to show up. So I think, but that's what is working right now because I don't want to spend extra time picking a place and making a reservation because I just don't have time. So I think just making sure you're both cool with what the situation is. Oh, Viv, I'm glad that these sessions are helpful. You're very welcome. Alexis, I'm glad you were able to join live as well. Yeah, today was a great conversation. My lips have been so chapped. Any tips besides lip balm? That Laneige lip mask stuff that everybody talks about, and it is pricey. If I am good about putting that on at nighttime and letting my lips like marinate in it overnight, it makes a world of a difference. Like even one night, like I noticed the difference. And like, I know I didn't put it on last night and that's when my lips are even worse this morning. So that is like that to me, if I just remember to put it in bed at night. And I think part of my problem right now is that I don't have the nightstand. We switched sides a while ago, but I don't have the nightstand anymore. So I don't keep it in there and keep it in the bathroom and then I forget to use it. It's just a whole thing. But when I do use my Laneige lip mask overnight, it makes a big difference. I think also not picking it up. But again, not good at that. Any other questions? Anything else that's on your mind? A reminder again, if you're still here, we are not having a live next week because I'm literally moving. into a new apartment. Like at this time, we're picking up our keys at noon Central Time. So we literally will be like picking up the keys and like opening up the door to our new apartment at the time that we are normally chatting, which is just crazy. And then the next week we'll be back with some different background. This is the last time we'll have this background for our lives. But we've had all the backgrounds for the lives. I mean, even within like the first apartment I started them in, I moved around a lot. Then we went to Texas, then back to New York, to Chicago for a couple months, and then the old apartment, this apartment, all over the place. Yeah, staying hydrated too also really helps. You said you're not taking most of your furniture with you. Have you started buying furniture to be delivered when you arrive? No, because I didn't want to risk anything getting there when we weren't there yet. This place, I only did it with a handful of things and nobody was in this apartment. So like if God forbid something arrived early, I could have asked the super to put it in the apartment. Somebody is still living in our Chicago apartment right now. So I can't risk anything getting there early. And I don't want to like send it to my mom's and have to move it. So we are actually getting a bed for my mom. We have a blow up mattress, but then we're buying a bed for my mom. So we will have a bed for sure. We're buying a couch from a family member as well. So we will have a couch. And then my mom is lending us a desk and a chair for Sam to have a place to work. And like the rest of it, will start to look on Monday after the movers leave. Like right now, I'm just like stressed about the movers coming. After the movers leave, and then on the car on Tuesday, I'll start to look and see but it seems like stuff arrives pretty quick nowadays. I had a lot of back order issues with the stuff for this apartment too. This apartment had very thorough measurements because I came in here like before. And again, nobody was living here. So the super let me in and I measured every single wall. I did not do that in our apartment. And my mom offered to do it, but I just said no. So there's like some walls where I have like, I think I know what I want there, but I really want to measure it and make sure that it fits well. So no purchasing yet. Lots of favorited things on like Wayfair and Amazon, but nothing bought yet. All right, now we really are about to run out of time. So let me ask you my final question, which is what is one thing that you're going to do this week to make progress on your goals? What is the one? Can be a small step that you are going to take. If you're here live, let us know in the chat. If you are watching the replay, let us know in the replay. I mean, shocker, my one thing is literally move across the country, which is just going to be, it's exciting. It's still bittersweet. I still have a lot of things about New York, a lot of people that I'm going to miss, but I think we're both very ready at this point to start this next chapter. Absolutely nothing. I love that, Joanna. Great step. Up your step count by 200 steps per day. Debbie, that's a great goal. Great small step increase. I love it. I'm just laughing at yours, Joanna. Absolutely nothing. I love it. Small steps add up. YouTube, I guess, decided it doesn't want to load the rest of my comments because I can't see any others. Oh, there we go. Goodness gracious. Start planning a summer trip to New England. That's fun, Jessica. Keep up with my nighttime routine while on a work trip. Safe travels. Schedule an oil change and a tire rotation. March goal setting. Oh yes, our session is tonight. Drop off your tax info with your accountant, Michelle. Move from Seattle to Vegas. Understand the stress, crazy exciting. Thank you, Amelia. I appreciate it. Enjoying vacation. Oh, Jamie. Hopefully very much enjoying. Y'all, this has been a really, really great one. The time like literally absolutely flew by. If you wouldn't mind giving this video a thumbs up before you head out, I would greatly appreciate it. And if you're new here, please click that subscribe button. I upload new videos every week focused on helping you achieve your goals. One more step, practicing my camera and continuing a photography course. Monalay, that's awesome. That's exciting. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and I will see you soon.